This is the Paracave Podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Jack's Pale Ale, exclusively available at Parramatta Leagues Club, Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty, Bo Cook from Loan Market, BTZD, the official apparel partner of the Paracave Podcast, and the Parramatta Times, the official media partner of the Paracave Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Paracave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. And this is the tipping podcast that comes out each week, and it is finals week in the NRL. The final series is upon us this week. Finals 2023 edition. Unfortunately, no Parramatta Eels this year, but nevertheless, there are some great matchups this week in the NRL, and it is round 8 of the NRLW as well, getting down to the pointy end of their season as well, heading into their final series. Only this round and next round to go before the finals for them. Now, speaking of the NRLW, let's get into that one. And the first game of the round is Thursday night, 7:45pm at PointsBet Stadium, home of the Cronulla Sharks. Sees the Cronulla Sharks take on the Dragons, 6th versus 7th. The Dragons in 6th, the Sharks in 7th. Now, a very crucial game for the Sharks, who sit in 7th spot on the ladder on 2 wins for the year. They really need to win this one to stay in touch with that top 4, with the Broncos in 4th spot on 8 points. There we go, a bit of a mouthful that one, but so very crucial game for the Sharks. They need to get this win. The Dragons too, they're on 6 points, so they want to keep on winning to climb that ladder and hopefully get into that top 4. So getting down with only 4 points on offer in this week and next week, it's very crucial. So the Sharks, look, they're back at home. They've got the back at home at PointsBet Stadium Thursday night, 7:45. Look, this is going to be a great game, as they always usually are. The Cowboys lost to the Dragons last week, 48 points to 16. Yeah, massive win to the Dragons there. Massive confidence booster. The Sharks lost to the Broncos in a close one, 32-28. After losing to the Premiers of 2022, the Knights, the week before, 22-14. So, look, confidence is probably a little bit down for the Sharks at the moment, but look, I think they'll bounce back this week against the Dragons and get the win there, which will set up some interesting games in the next round, and jostling for positions for that top 4. So I think the Sharks will get the win in that game. Now, the next one sees the next game of the round sees the West Tigers take on the Brisbane Broncos at McDonald Jones Stadium in Newcastle. 11:30am on Saturday. The Tigers sit in 8th spot at the moment on 4 points. So like the Sharks, they will want to get a win to potentially play finals football. Maybe a little bit out of their depth now in their first season. But you never know what can happen if results go their way. Kezi Apps returns back into the second row there. And look, the Brisbane Broncos, they beat the Cronulla Sharks last week, 32 points to 28, and they beat the Raiders in a pretty comprehensive win the week before, 40 points to 8. So they're in form. The Tigers, they started off the season in cracking form, but then they've lost the last 5 games. So maybe New Year syndrome has kicked in. They've had a few injuries, but confidence might be down at the moment. So, look, I'm going to tip the Broncos in this one. They've got into 4th spot. They want to secure a top 4 spot to play finals. I just think that the Broncos will be too good for the Tigers in that one. The next game on Saturday at 1:30 is also at McDonald Jones Stadium. Sees the premiers from 2022, the Newcastle Knights, play the Roosters. Now, this should be a cracker of a game, this one. This is the Roosters, who are in top spot, up against the Knights in 2nd spot. And look, both these teams are in form. Both these sides have won their last 5 games of the competition. The Roosters had a big win over the Parramatta Eels, 46 points to 12. The Newcastle Knights had a good win against the Raiders, 20 points to 12 last start, after I think being 12-0 down and coming back to win that one. So, look, great results in those ones. The last time they played was last season. They haven't played this year. It was 18 points to 16 to the Roosters in that one. The Roosters seem to have a little bit of the edge over the Newcastle Knights, having won their competition game back in March of 2022, when we had 2 NRLW competitions last season, 28 points to 12. So, last couple of meetings there, the Roosters have got over the top of the Newcastle Knights. So, look, this should be an interesting game. Both the form teams of the competition. There could be Jessica Sergis is out, a dislocated finger. So she's out of the side there. This could be a toss of the coin. They're both in form. I'm going to go Newcastle in this one, only because it is up at Newcastle. Home ground advantage. I'm sure the Newcastle fans will get out there in big numbers and support the women's team, as they have been doing the men's team. So, look, I'm going to go Newcastle in a close game there. Cowboys and Raiders are the next game. Now, a very important game for the Raiders. They just sit outside the top 4 on 8 points due to for and against. So they will want to win this game to stay in touch with that top 4 if the Broncos win on that weekend. So 5th versus 9th. The Cowboys, look, they've had some good wins this year, but it's been a sort of a dismal season along the way as well, with some close losses, some big losses. But look, they had a good win against Newcastle, I think it was at the start of the year, against the Premiers, so that would have given them good confidence. They beat the Tigers. The Raiders, look, they started off the season really well, having some great wins against the Tigers, Dragons and Eels, and then have fallen away against the more experienced Broncos and Knights. So their first season, both these teams' first season in the competition, and look, this game's being played up on the Gold Coast on Sunday, 11:30am, so Cbus Super Stadium. So, look, I'm going to tip the Raiders in this one. I think they've got a bit more strike power than the Cowboys. I think they've got a little bit more to play for, coming so close to the semi-finals in the NRLW. So I'm going to tip the Raiders in that one. And the last game of the NRLW round, again, a doubleheader at the Cbus Super Stadium on the Gold Coast, sees the Titans take on the last placed Eels. So the Titans sit in third spot on 10 points after 5 wins this year, only the 2 losses. And look, the poor old Eels, they had their first win against the Cowboys a couple of weeks ago, but unfortunately have lost the majority of their games this year. Kennedy Cherrington returns, which is a major boost for the Parramatta Eels. The co-captain of the side returns, and after her 5-game suspension for a dangerous tackle. So a big boost there for the Parramatta Eels. But I think the Gold Coast Titans, they're just playing a little bit better football at the moment. I think they'll get the win in this game against the Eels. So just recapping, in the NRLW, I will tip the Sharks, the Broncos, the Knights, the Raiders and the Eels. Alrighty, now time for the NRL, and as I said, week 1 of finals week 1. How good? September football. That's what we have all been waiting for. September football. This is the business end. This is where it all happens. And we're playing. Yeah, this is where it all happens. 4 weeks of finals, 4 more weeks of games, and then the grand final, and then we'll know our premiers. But it all starts this Friday night. Up in Brisbane, the Broncos take on the Melbourne Storm, 2nd versus 3rd, up there at Suncorp Stadium. Now, these two teams played last week. Very understrength sides, both of them. They had a lot of players out, so a lot of players are back in this week. So these are the full strength sides that you want to see. Reece Walsh is back. Adam Reynolds is back at halfback and captain. Pat Carrigan has been named at lock. That's who you want to see. They're the sort of players you want to see. Tony Staggs is back after serving his 1-week suspension. Cameron Munster is back. Jerome Hughes is back. All the big names are back for both sides. So really full strength sides. The Melbourne Storm have got a bit of a hoodoo over the Broncos. I think they've won the last 13 games against the Brisbane Broncos. So, look, are hoodoos meant to be broken? Yes, they can be. They can definitely be broken. This is a bit more of a more confident Brisbane side, I think. And, look, whoever wins this game will only get to face possibly Penrith in the grand final. So the loser of this game will have to play them on their way to the grand final. So a big incentive. The winner of this game goes straight into the preliminary final, which is a big bonus as well. They get next week end off. So look, this is going to be a cracker of a game. This is where your big players stand up. This is where Adam Reynolds is going to earn his money for Brisbane. He's been there before. He's won a grand final with South Sydney. This is where someone like Cameron Munster as well, he loves these big games. He's a Queenslander. He loves playing it at Suncorp Stadium as well. So, look, I'm going to tip Brisbane in this game, and it's going to be a close game. I'm going to tip Brisbane in this game simply because it's at home. It's a different Brisbane side to what the Melbourne Storm have been defeating in the past. There's a lot more confidence about this Brisbane side. The way that Reece Walsh has been playing this year at fullback, he's had a wow of a year, and just getting Adam Reynolds back at halfback as well with his experience will be a big boost for the Brisbane Broncos. So I'm going to tip the Broncos in that one, but in a close one. The next game sees Team 1 play Team 4, which is the Penrith Panthers, the minor premiers, take on the Warriors from New Zealand. So, again, we saw a relatively full-strength side last week for the Panthers, who defeated the Cowboys pretty comprehensively. Although Mitch Kenny and Scott Sorensen return to the starting lineup of the Panthers. So they've been out the last couple of weeks, so they return, which is a big boost for them. Obviously, still no Jerome Luai, so Jack Cogger is in that 5/8 spot. But look, this is a well-drilled machine, the Penrith Panthers. They're going to be hard to beat at home in front of a full house. The Warriors, look, they've hired a private jet apparently to come over to Australia to get their best preparation as possible. So not on commercial air flights. So that's certainly an interesting way to approach finals. They are big rank outsiders, but they get obviously their big guns. They arrested a few players last week as well. So they get their big guns back as well. Sean Johnson, he's been there before. He's played in a grand final for the Warriors. He's played semi-finals. He knows what it's all about. A lot of people underestimate this New Zealand Warriors side with their finals experience. Although, as I just said, you've got Sean Johnson there. You've got Charles Nicoll-Klokstad, who's played in a grand final as well before for the Canberra Raiders. You've got Taihu Harris, who's played for Melbourne in big games. Dylan Walker's won a competition with South Sydney back in the day. Murata Niokore has played in the grand final last year for Parramatta. So you've got some players there with experience. This could be an unknown game for punters out there. Everyone is going Panthers, and look, they should, because they are hot favourites. They are the minor premiers. They are at home. Although I'm not underestimating the Warriors in this game. I think they may give it a good shake. They could have a few surprises for the Panthers. Obviously with their coach, Andrew Webster, who was an assistant last year at the Penrith Panthers. He might have a few little secrets about the Panthers. You never know what's going on there. So look, I'm going to go an upset here, and probably people will say it's because I don't like the Panthers, but I think there might be a little something about the Warriors. I think they may just be able to get up in this game. It's going to be tough because, as I said, it's at Penrith, full house. It's a well-drilled machine. The last time these two sides met, it was only 18-6, and that was in Magic Round up there in Brisbane. So, a fairly close game there. Last time, the Warriors, they've been in form. The Panthers, well, they had a good win last week against the Cowboys. They lost to the Eels the week before, and then they've had a few good wins there, so in a row. It's going to be close. I'm going to tip the Warriors by 4 points. There we go. Although most people will tip the Panthers, but I'm going to go the Warriors. I think they can just do it. It's going to be tough, but I think they'll just have a lot of confidence, and they won't be worried about the Panthers being hot favourites. The next game on Saturday sees the Sharks take on the Roosters at PointsBet Stadium in Cronulla. So 6th versus 7th. The Roosters, they scraped in again into the finals after beating South Sydney at Accor Stadium. A relatively full-strength side for the Roosters. No Daniel Tupou. He's still out, though. Jared Waerea-Hargreaves is still out suspended, but a relatively full-strength side. Joseph Manu comes back into the centre position, which is great news for the Tricolours. Brandon Smith, he knows these big games. He's played them all before for Melbourne, and obviously an international as well. So he is coming into a little bit of form at the back end of this season. So keep an eye out for him with his darting little runs from dummy half, and he's also a good defensive hooker as well. So watch him. He knows all about it. Sam Walker, he had a wow of a game against the Rabbitohs last week. He was man of the match. So he is coming back. I think that was his second game back in the top grade. This will be his third. And Billy Smith as well, he played fantastic against the Rabbitohs as well in the centre position. The Sharks, there's still a little bit of doubt over Connor Tracy, who's been named at fullback. Will Kennedy has also been named on an extended bench as well. So there's a little bit of doubt about Connor. Who else have we got? Wade Graham as well, captain. He plays his last game at a PointsBet Stadium. This is a finals game. He played last week as well, his last regular home game. This is his last game at PointsBet Stadium, so he'll want to go out a winner. Obviously, in this game, the loser of this game is eliminated from the season, so we're playing for keeps in this week. So I'm going to tip the Roosters in this game. I just think they've got a lot of confidence at the moment. They've 5 straight wins going into this. The Sharks, they had a win over the Raiders, a loss to the Knights, and then they had a win over the Cowboys, Titans, and Rabbitohs. But I just think the experience of the Roosters in these sort of games might get the chocolates on this occasion. The Sharks, they'll be wanting not to lose this game, obviously, because their season will be over, but after last year as well, with 2 straight losses in straight sets in the finals, after finishing third in the competition, so they won't want a repeat of that. But I just think with the Roosters' confidence at the moment, their experience in their side in big games, I think their coach Trent Robinson, he knows, he's been here plenty of times. Craig Fitzgibbon used to be an assistant coach at the Roosters, so it's the master versus the apprentice in that aspect. I think the Roosters by, again, about 4 points, I think. The last time these two sides played, it was Sharks 22-12, and that game was played at PointsBet Stadium as well. So, look, the Sharks, they know that they can do the Roosters. They can beat the Roosters. That was early on in the season, but the way the Roosters have been playing lately, I think they'll get the win in this one. And the season 2023 will be over for the Sharkies. Now, the last game of the finals for week 1 sees the high-flying Newcastle Knights, who have got into 5th position and secured a home final against the Canberra Raiders, who have just snuck into the top 8 after having a loss against the Sharks last week. And look, this is going to be the 3rd full house at Newcastle in a row. So congratulations to them. Well done to the fans of Newcastle for selling it out and getting behind your team. And why wouldn't you? I think 9 in a row now. You guys have got the confidence at the moment, playing some great football. Dom Young, how great were those tries last week against the Dragons? Unbelievable. Kalen Ponga returns, which is a big boost for Newcastle. Jackson Hastings returns to halfback as well after injury. Look, an interesting move there, I think. I mean, it would have been a difficult choice, I thought. Adam Clune, he'd been playing some great footy there in the last few weeks for Newcastle, but obviously you want to put your best players back into the side. So Jackson, he is fit, he plays, he's at halfback. Tyson Gamble as well, he's at 5'8". So look, it's going to be difficult for the Raiders. They are missing Josh Papali'i and also Corey Horsburgh, who is suspended for 5 weeks. And look, they've had a couple of losses going into this game against the Sharks and the Broncos. They had a win against the Bulldogs and they lost against the Storm. So they haven't had the best of run-ins to the semi-finals, but the Newcastle Knights, they've, as I said, 9 in a row. They are high-flying. And look, Newcastle, they've got the wood over the Raiders twice this season, 28 points to 6 and in their last encounter, and 24-14 in their first encounter. So they know how to beat the Canberra Raiders, and I think that will be the way it will be again on Sunday at McDonald Jones Stadium. I think the Newcastle Knights will get the Canberra Raiders, which will end the Canberra Raiders 2023 season. So just recapping those tips for week 1 of the Telstra Premiership Finals week 1. I'm going to tip the Broncos, the Warriors, the Roosters and the Newcastle Knights. So that will mean that the Sharks and Raiders are finished for 2023. It'll mean that the Broncos and the Warriors will go to a prelim final, and the Panthers and Storm will have another week of finals against the Roosters and Knights. So, look, some great football ahead. All starts on Friday night in the NRL, Thursday night in the NRLW. If your team is in the finals series, then enjoy it. Get behind your team, as I know that no doubt you will, but enjoy it. It's a great time of year. Spring is in the air. The smell of rugby league is in the air. The liniment is, as they say, the Denker rub is in the air. The smell of that is in the air. So enjoy your football, and enjoy your football, and no doubt I will. And thank you very much for listening. You'll be able to catch my interview podcast on Thursday with Dennis Carnahan, comedic writer, songwriter about rugby league. You know, that's in Queensland. Of that fame, massive Canberra Raiders fan as well. So he will be hoping his team gets up over the Newcastle Knights on Sunday. And also catch me on Pulse FM, 89.9 FM on a Friday night. But thank you very much for listening. Enjoy your footy, and may your team win.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. See you next time.